So, one of you guys asked me if I'm gonna make another Giallo video. I thought, gosh, I'd love to, but I don't know what else I can say. But as I thought about it, I realized I have been watching a lot of movie review channels on YouTube lately, and I decided maybe I should try my hand at a Giallo movie review. I'm not a reviewer, I'm not a critic, I'm not necessarily the most descriptive person or the person that can pick out the deeper aspects of a film, but I thought I'd try this. Let's see how it goes. Today I'm going to review one of the very first Gialli I ever watched, A Blade in the Dark. This film is about a horror movie composer who rents a villa to be able to get his work done, and pretty soon a lot of strange things start happening and he suspects murder. So in this video, I'm basically just going to walk you through the storyline. So it's going to be full of spoilers. If I do more reviews in the future, I'm still deciding if I want to just walk you through the storyline or if I want to give you my first impressions and my opinions on the film. But in this one, I'm going to walk you through the plot and then I'm going to give my overall opinion. Like I said, lots of spoilers. Also, this movie is rated R. I'm not going to be showing footage of the rated R moments, but if you're a kid, go away. And I am going to be talking about murder and violence and stuff like that, so if you don't enjoy that, also go away. A Blade in the Dark. This film was released in 1983. It was directed by Lamberto Bava. I watched this on Amazon Prime. It's free if you have Prime, and it's dubbed. And we'll get more into that later. So the movie starts out and it has three kids. It's got three little boys, and they're in what looks like an abandoned house. It looks like they're doing some kind of a dare. These two brown-headed boys, it looks like they're making the blonde boy participate in this dare, and he doesn't want to, and the brown-headed boys are calling him a girl. So they make the blonde boy go down the stairs. He goes down, they're waiting, and nothing happens, and then suddenly this ball shoots up the stairs and it's covered in blood. So the two little boys nope out of there. And then we get the title card, A Blade in the Dark, and awesome music is playing, and it's great, it's a vibe. Now we have arrived at the primary setting for this movie, and that is the villa. Our protagonist, Bruno, is renting this big, spacious, beautiful house to work on the soundtrack for a movie he's working on. Bruno is seen talking to his landlord, Tony, just about the house and everything, and Bruno is fantastic. I love him. He's got this really innocent, kind of righteous vibe. I'm not sure what other roles this actor has been in, but he's perfect for the good guy. He's great. He's talking to the landlord a little bit, and he mentions the movie he's working on. His friend is the director, and he has no idea how the movie ends because the director is keeping it a secret. Tony introduces Bruno to Giovanni, who is the caretaker on the property. So he's doing maintenance and grounds work and all that stuff. So Giovanni also lives on the property in a separate cottage. Oh, and it's mentioned that Giovanni has keys to everything. If you need anything, just holler at him. He is so creepy looking. I love it. He's so gross and slimy and creepy looking. So you're just suspicious of him right off the bat. Now Bruno is at the studio and reviewing film for the movie with his director and friend, Sandra. This is when we realize that first scene we talked about with the three little boys, that is from the movie. Sandra mentions to Bruno that the house he's staying at is perfect for him to compose the score for this movie because the house is so creepy. We are back at the villa. This is a particularly long scene in the movie. We start out in this point of view shot, so it's kind of like Halloween-esque. You're in the point of view of presumably the killer, looking around the house. This person grabs a box cutter and walks over to presumably Bruno's desk, and there's a nudie magazine, and the killer, this mysterious person, if you will, slices up the picture with a box cutter, a picture of a lady. So this box cutter, we are going to be seeing this throughout the movie. It's the kind that slides up with a click, click, click. It's perfect. That is our blade in the dark. Oh no, Bruno's coming home. Bruno unlocks the door and walks in. and finds his metronome is ticking. He also finds one of the doors to his house is ajar and just banging in the wind. He has a very stoic facial expression all the time. He's never concerned. He never looks concerned. He just looks curious, but still relaxed. Okay, so we already have this awesome setup. We have this huge house that this guy is borrowing. He's borrowing this house. The layout is really weird, really disjointed. It's probably the opposite of what good feng shui would be. There are a ton of doors, a ton of windows. At least 2 other people have keys to the house right now. And we also have a history of short-term renters. Who knows how many people are familiar with this house? I love the setting. I love the setup. I love this house. And I like how open access the home feels throughout the movie. Okay, we have another point of view shot. We see the killer is now outside and he's looking at the house from outside. So Bruno starts getting to work on his music, completely unbothered by the metronome and the open door. He also finds his slashed up nudie mag, still doesn't really care. But he does begin to wander around the house a little bit. Then we switch to another point of view where we get a close-up on an eye. We see the box cutter clicking. We see some high heels creeping around. And Bruno is just kind of exploring his house, I suppose. And he's walking down this hallway. And this house is so cool. It's got a hallway of closets. So the hall isn't walls, it's closet doors. Super convenient. So he's walking down this hallway and suddenly this lady bursts out of the closet and screams at him to kill a roach. But it's actually a spider, but they all call it a roach. Maybe it has to do with this really strange translation work in this movie. So anyway, this lady just pops out. Bruno gives this lady a glass of water to calm down and gives her a cigarette. And then she's like, so who are you anyway? Which is funny because she's in his house. Anyway, she's like, are you a friend of Linda's? And he's like, I don't know who that is. And they flirt with each other weirdly a little bit, and she says that her name is Katya. Well, Bruno gets a phone call. It's a phone call from the landlord, Tony, so Katya excuses herself to the bathroom. Bruno reports to the landlord that some of the lights aren't working, and the landlord's like, oh, they're probably just unscrewed because the last tenant, Linda, was kind of weird. Anyway, so when Bruno gets off the phone, he starts looking for Katya, and she's just gone. He can't find her anywhere. She disappeared. But he did find her diary that she left. And in the diary, he finds a page where she's talking about a terrible, terrible secret. Linda's terrible secret. Well, anyway, Bruno decides to get back to work. And then outside, we see Katya walking around. And then we see a blade, click, 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 close by. Where, again, in the point of view of the blade wielder, who then lunges at Katya and slashes her face. And as typical of Minnie Jolly, she's just screaming. Her screaming is so over the top. The blood is super red. It's wonderful. She gets chased, slashed, ultimately gets killed by a box cutter. So as you can imagine, it's not pretty. Bruno is working on his music completely unaware of all the stuff that's happening outside. When he plays back his tape, he does hear some strange whispering about a secret that no one can know. And simultaneously, we switch to shots of Katya's body being dragged across the property. Bruno takes a break, goes out for a smoke. He hears some rustling, so he kind of goes out into the shrubbery and looks around, doesn't see anything. That blade in the dark was just on the other side of the shrubs, ready to attack if needed. But Bruno hears his phone ringing, so he turns around and goes back inside. Nobody was on the other line, but he looked down and saw there was some blood on his pants. So he got a flashlight, went back out to the shrubbery, and saw a little bit of blood on the leaves. Bruno goes to Giovanni's cottage to see if he's in there. He looks in the window and sees a bunch of nudie pictures all over the wall. Just, giving him more of that creeper vibe. But there's no Giovanni. Bruno does see some drops of blood on the concrete stairs that go down. I think they are going down into the basement of the house. I'm not sure if those stairs also connect to Giovanni's cottage. That's a little unclear. So then Bruno hears his music, what he's composing, it turns on in the house. So he starts going back to the house and it turns off. So again, like this house, it feels so vulnerable. We have all the doors are open, all the windows are open, all the lights are on, and it's nighttime outside, and it's just lovely. Well, in that short period of time, Bruno comes home to find that his tape was destroyed. It's like ripped up everywhere. And also, pages of Katya's diary were taken out and thrown in the fire. When Bruno hears Giovanni arriving home, he goes to the cottage and he finds Giovanni dragging a huge, incredibly heavy bag up those concrete stairs. And Bruno's like, let me help you. And Giovanni's like, no, it's cool. Giovanni says it's got a bunch of magazines and papers in it. It is not shaped like it's got magazines and papers in it, but okay. So Bruno offers Giovanni a cigarette and asks if Giovanni knows anything about Linda. And Giovanni's like, I got hired like right before she left, so I didn't really know her. And then Bruno was like, well, do you know Katya? And Giovanni's like, no. So Bruno goes back to his house, starts closing up all the windows and the doors and all that stuff. He walks in his bedroom and bam, this lady pops out from around the corner yelling surprise. This lady is Julia. She is Bruno's girlfriend. She is from out of town, so she surprised him. And here again, we have another uninvited person with like full access to this home. So apparently, Julia is an actor in Naples, and her practice or her play or whatever got canceled, so she drove over to see him. I think Julia is super pretty. I love her. As a girlfriend, she's definitely very like jealous and very needy and always like, she's high maintenance. She's kind of drama. So Bruno starts telling Julia about all the weird stuff that's been happening tonight. Julia does not really care, and she's like, you forgot to list that your pool really, really stinks. Why don't you throw that in too? She really doesn't believe him. She's not taking it seriously. And then Bruno mentions Katya, and Julia gets even more annoyed. So Bruno's just really thinking out loud to himself because he's got no one to collaborate with on this. But he decides that Katya was probably here tonight to meet the killer, because he's already convinced there's a killer and somebody has died. He thinks that maybe the killer wanted to meet Katya to find out what secrets she had found out. So the next day, Julia has left. She had to go back. It's daytime now, and Bruno is just creeping around the villa. Down in the basement, he sees this door that he hasn't been in before, but it's locked. As soon as he tries to open it, a voice from behind says, don't bother. It's Tony, the landlord. Tony explains that in that room are the belongings of the former tenant, Linda, who hasn't come back to pick those things up yet. And Tony says he's here to check out the stinky pool. He said he thinks it's the air purifier and has put Giovanni on the job. Bruno starts going on again about all the strange things that have been happening, and he asked the landlord if he knew Katya, and the landlord said yes, that Katya did come to swim in the pool. So Bruno's like, I think maybe Katya came last night to meet Linda. Does Linda still have a key to my house? And I'm like, in case you haven't noticed, nobody really needs a key to get into your house, Bruno. It's wide open all the time. The landlord is like, I don't know, bro. You should ask Giovanni. So Bruno is back to work on his music, and, you know, all windows are wide open, and this girl comes up to the window. She says her name is Angela, and she's looking for Katya. Apparently, she and Katya are roommates and are also models together. She says Katya never came home last night. She also immediately sees Katya's diary on Bruno's table and mentions that that is why Katya came over last night, was to get her diary back. She goes on to say that she's not really too concerned about Katya because she does disappear sometimes. She's just talking a lot, I guess. Then she says this is her first time back to the house since Linda left, and that she really used to love swimming in the pool. So Bruno's like, swim whenever you want. And Angela's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna swim now. Because, you know, you always have your swimsuit in your purse. In the pool house, Angela is changing in her swimsuit. And it is not a Giallo without some nudity. We don't have much in this movie. This is it. This is your one shining moment. This movie is rather tame in the gratuitous nudity department. So Angela is delivering our view for this film. Giovanni is outside peeping on her. It's really gross. But Angela doesn't care. So I guess it's cool. Then she goes swimming. We get a really cool like swimming scene with cool angles, like Cool lighting, cool camera angles, all that stuff. It's pretty. And she finds a box cutter at the bottom of the pool, and she's a little freaked out by it. Angela is done swimming, so she calls to Bruno like, hey, can I come in? Bruno's already gone. Bruno went to the studio. So she just goes in, as everyone does, and goes upstairs to the bathroom. She's gonna like wash up or whatever. And as she's up there preparing, we see like these hands with red fingernails, like grabbing a knife. We see these like high heels going up the stairs. Angela begins to wash her hair in the sink, which is definitely the harder way to wash your hair. But anyway, and then this is one of the most striking, gripping murder scenes of my memory. I really like this one. It's bad. So Angela's like, washing her hair, and she's reaching onto the counter for the bottle of shampoo. And as she does, this knife pins her hand onto the counter. It's a big old butcher knife. It stabs right through her hand and pins her onto the counter. And then it's just really bad. And then the killer puts a plastic bag over Angela's head. And it's just like soapy and wet, and she's suffocating. Oh, and then the killer smashes her head on the counter several times. Oh, and during that struggle, she's like doing this and finally like rips her hand out, but it's like the knife is like sliced. Okay, so after a brief struggle, Angela is dead, and the killer like drapes her over like the tub like that, and then slashes her throat, and blood just goes everywhere. Oh, it's tiring. So now it's time to clean up. So this killer begins grabbing a bunch of tissues and cleaning up. And the part that really makes all this just a little extra disturbing is the killer's wailing. They're sobbing, they're crying while they do this. Also, the tissues to clean up gallons of blood, I don't know. They didn't plan that out very well. Bruno comes home and immediately notices one of the knives has been taken off of the wall and is by the sink. He goes to the bathroom, and apparently our killer did a great job cleaning up, but there are a few things out of place. Bruno notices a few beads, like a few pearls, that are in the drain of the tub. And he also immediately notices the gash in the counter from where the knife went in. And there's like a little tiny bit of blood inside that gash. He then finds that the knife fits perfectly into that slot. He decides to go down to the locked storage room with Linda's belongings in it, and he peeks under the door and he sees a bloody tissue sticking out. He now believes that Angela and Katya have both been murdered. The doorbell rings and Sandra, his director, has come over. And Bruno, again, just starts going on and on about these murders and all the strange things. Sandra's like, call the police. And Bruno's like, I ain't got no bodies. Sandra's like, the bodies are probably somewhere on this property, like somewhere in this house. And Bruno's like, I've looked everywhere except for Linda's locked room. So they go down to the locked room and it's unlocked. Oh yeah, and Sandra's mentioning like, I knew a Linda. Like, that's kind of weird, but it could not be the same Linda that I knew that lived here. Well, when they go into this room, there are no bodies. There's just some boxes, some clothes, magazines, and like a big trunk full of tennis balls. And that's when Sandra is like, that's the same Linda! Linda was obsessed with tennis. And then Sandra reveals that Linda was the complete inspiration behind the horror movie that she's writing. She says something about childhood trauma that turns a person into a monster. Then we hear some high-heeled footsteps coming from upstairs. Sandra and Bruno are really freaked out. It's one of those like prolonged sneaking, creeping scenes. They finally go upstairs. They start walking down this hallway that's got a bunch of windows and curtains. And this lady with a knife pops out from behind one of the curtains, and it's Julia. It's Julia. She's been freaked out, so she grabs this knife and is hiding in self-defense because apparently Bruno's stories scared her so much. Sandra's gone. Bruno and Julia are getting ready for bed. Bruno's like, why are you here again? And Julia's like, my play got suspended for obscenity. Even though Julia like just got done painting her nails, they jump into bed and Bruno finds like a tennis ball in her stuff. And he's like, why do you have this? And she's like, don't you remember we met playing tennis together? So Sandra is sitting at her place and she's thinking about Linda. She can't stop. So she opens her little black book and she calls Linda. Linda picks up and all we hear is crying. She's not talking, she's just crying. And Sandra's like apologizing. She's like, I didn't betray you. Like my story isn't about you. You're just the inspiration. But Linda just hangs up. Julia's acting a little suspicious. Like she gets up and just leaves and like helps herself around the house. Giovanni mentions that he sees her walking around a lot and that maybe she has insomnia. Bruno also talks to Giovanni about the two missing girls, and Giovanni's like, maybe they're dead. Bruno and Julia are fighting a little bit. Things are definitely getting tense. So Bruno leaves. Julia's laying out by the pool, and Bruno leaves, and he goes to a payphone and he calls the director of Julia's play, and very quickly finds out that the play was not suspended, that Julia abandoned the play. Bruno then goes to the studio and finds that the final reel, this is the mystery reel that no one's been allowed to see, the final scene of the movie was destroyed. And it was destroyed by those red, painted, nailed hands. But Bruno and the, producer or something, they do their best to try to put the tape back together. Meanwhile, Giovanni is working on replacing the purifier for the pool. So we have like this big silo kind of thing, and he gets underneath and it's like opening the bottom, and suddenly this hand falls out. And then he looks up in the top and there are Katya and Angela's bodies stuffed in there. And Giovanni is like shocked. So that immediately shows us he was not behind it. And then a wrench comes right down on his head. And then at the same time, Bruno and the producer are watching that final reel. We're back with those three little boys, but the producer is saying like, it seems like there's a female character here now. But we're back, we go back to the villa and Sandra is there. Sandra is looking for Linda. Suddenly, Linda, the killer, comes up from behind with some film. And it looks like she strangles Sandra with her own movie. She dies. After that, the killer lets out this terrifying, maniacal laughter. Bruno is filled with a sense of urgency and he rushes home. While he's on his way, Julia is walking around and she finds a pile of film. We're in like the basement area. She finds a pile of film, like a big old pile, and she goes and starts like digging through it, and of course there's Sandra, dead Sandra. And we start to hear some creepy giggling, and we get another like kind of sneaking around scene, sneaking and creeping scene. Julia knows she's being stalked by a killer. Julia ends up going to hide in a hallway closet, and the killer knows exactly where she is. And they come up to the other side of the door and they say, I don't want to hurt you. I want your blood. And they stab a knife through the door of the closet. And that's a really pretty shot. I feel like when people think of A Blade in the Dark, that's a shot that they picture. If you Google it, that's an image you will see. Bruno gets home. He's like screaming for Julia. She hears him, so she busts the door open and makes a run for it. And the killer, we now see them in full. It's a lady with curly brown hair and like a red and pink outfit. And they're following close behind like this. Unfortunately, Julia gets stabbed in the back and it comes out through the chest. It's really bad. And Bruno gets there right after it happens. He rounds the corner and he sees Julia on the ground and the killer is like hunched over her. Well, as soon as the killer sees Bruno, he starts like hooting like a monkey and just running towards Bruno. It's hilarious, but also slightly scary. Actually, the word I would like to use here is the killer is galloping towards Bruno. It's a lot. If you like a horror, like a slasher that's also kind of funny, this is for you. Anyway, so Bruno smacks the killer in the face with a brick. The killer falls to the floor. Bruno goes to check on Julia, confirms she's definitely dead. She's been impaled. She's dead. And Bruno turns around and sees the curly brown hair on the ground from around the corner. So he goes to look at this killer. Well, that was just the wig. Turns out the killer is lunging at him again. The killer is Linda, But Linda is the landlord, Tony. Did you see that coming? I didn't. So Linda's coming at him. Bruno manages to like turn the knife and like makes Linda, Tony, stab themselves. And as he dies, he's moaning about how he's not a female. He's not a female. And in conclusion, we get a little bit more elaboration that one of the boys at the beginning scene of Sandra's film had become so emasculated during this dare that they developed a gender identity crisis. And in real life, that's what happened to Tony / Linda. As a child, Tony developed an alter ego, and since he couldn't kill it, he ended up killing young girls since he could not kill the girl in himself. And there we go, that's the plot. I might have been too detailed, I'm not sure. Overall, this movie is almost childish or juvenile in a way. There's something about it. Maybe it's the campiness. It's rather tame in a lot of ways, except for the killings. The violence is a different level. And you know, sometimes you can't tell if something it's good or if it's hilarious. Like the hooting and the laughing and all that kind of stuff. So this is the third time I've watched this movie. And I would say the weakest thing about it is the dialogue, the dub. The translation is very awkward. And when I first saw the movie, I didn't realize how awkward it was till I've watched a bunch of other better translated Giallo. From what I've seen, it's a little bit of a joke. Some of these lines are especially bad. So it is entertaining. The music is great. The violence is really well done. Some really cool camera work, you know, with the point of view shots and focusing on the blade and all of that. I really love this movie. I think it's really wholesome. I think it's really well-rounded. It's definitely something fun to watch actively or fun to watch in the background. Like if you're watching passively or if you just have it on to set the mood during Halloween or something. I love this movie. I loved it since the first time I watched it. It was a great first impression. It's a bit different from the classic Giallo of more like the 60s and 70s, but it still carries that spirit. The cast is great. I loved everybody. And personally, I like the gender identity or gender bending, surprise gender reveal. This is kind of a common theme in a lot of movies, but I do enjoy it. And I think that's all I had to say about this film. How'd I do? How'd I do in this movie review? Let me know if you've seen it, if you liked it, if you have a Giallo you want me to review. Do let me know. I'm going to try a few different things. I think I'll do this some more, and I'm going to try a few different things in like how I review it and what I talk about. So this was like a plot heavy review. Let me know what you thought. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. I'm losing my voice. Bye!